A lark and her momster are coming your way. Gonna tell it how it is, so won't you join us today? And action. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome
to
another episode of
A Lark and Her Momster. We're back at the tiny house.
We are back at the tiny house, and I will be very honest, it's my birthday. Not when this is released, that's going to be confusing. So if you're listening to it when it's released, it's technically not my birthday, but the day we are recording it, it is my birthday, and I'm also very sleepy.
And she does not have a clue on how to record podcasts, so that when we record them and then release them later, people don't know that we've recorded more than one in a weekend.
No, but that's fine.
Because you mentioned your birthday yesterday.
Well, because it was my birthday night. It was my birthday weekend. So there's that.
Goober.
There's a squirrel. Sorry.
And she means a real squirrel.
There is a real squirrel outside
Not
the window.
squirrel like distracted
Although,
squirrel.
same.
Yeah, lots of squirrels. We're
many
at the
squirrels.
tiny house, and thank you, Amanda, again for letting us come and hang out at the tiny house. And that squirrel just jumped from one tree to another tree.
We're not distracted.
No, not at all. It wouldn't have anything to do with the wine or the fact that we love being out here in the middle of
It's very
almost
peaceful.
nowhere. It's very quiet.
It's very peaceful. It's really lovely. We had a nice walk this morning. No one's hiding in the cupboard upstairs. So that feels safer.
So sorry. only my adult child would come to a place and immediately go upstairs into the sleeping area and check out the cubby to make sure no one's hiding in
Well,
it.
it's a small cubby. It's one of those things that like you open and there's a creepy child in the movies, so I had to check it.
Or Chucky.
No.
Or a doll that's
Ew.
come to life.
Don't like dolls.
Yeah.
Dolls can go away.
That was one of the scariest things I remember watching as a child.
See,
The
Chucky
movie.
didn't scare me, but dolls, was it Valley of the Dolls?
No, that didn't scare me. I mean, it should have been scary, but it wasn't scary. But no, it was this weird movie on Sunday afternoons in New Orleans. They used to have these old movies that would play, and I think I was probably a freshman in high school, maybe middle school. I don't remember, but I was not a highly social child if I was not dancing.
Get out.
Really, seriously. Anyway, so I would stay home on Sunday afternoons and watch these old movies. And there was this movie about this doll, and it was like a life-size doll that this little girl got.
Oh,
And
I don't know what that's like at all.
well, yours was not life-size.
It was life-size.
It was, no.
It
was a
lived in the
small doll.
closet forever.
No. It was a small doll that just looked like you, and you refused to put it anywhere near you. Your Gami went out of her way to get that doll because she thought you would love that doll because you love the American Girl dolls that look like all the other dolls. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So the movie, can I go back to the movie?
Yeah.
So this doll comes to life, and she finds this big, like, needle.
Oh, yeah, because you don't like needles.
Like a hat pin kind of needle.
Yeah.
And went and stabbed the family, but not the little girl, just the parents. Anyway, it was a movie. I think it was
did they
filmed
deserve it?
in the 70s. One of those weird movies that thinking back, I would watch it and think, why did I think this was scary? But
Yeah, that's
did
how
at
I
the
was
time.
with it. I watched it as an adult.
I'm sorry. It was scary. I was an adult.
I'm sorry.
And
The
I
book
thought
is-
it was freaking scary.
book is far more
I'm so
terrifying
sorry.
than
No,
the movie.
no.
Listen, wait.
No.
This is not a horror movie podcast.
But it could be.
It could be. I would be so into it. And it would just be me telling my mom, no, we cannot watch another possession movie. That's not okay. Because
You've already
I would
talked
have to-
about that
I
this
know.
week. Okay.
Traumatized.
So why don't you talk about the wine today? Because this wine is actually really good.
I will talk about the wine. And I also want to say something about the wine and about what this episode is about. So I don't drink very often this weekend, but other than that, I really don't. I mostly drink water and that's about it. But when I'm with you when we record the podcast, I will have a glass of wine.
Or two.
But part of the reason I don't drink a lot is because of what this episode is about. And we'll get into that.
In a minute.
Thanks. The dogs are so loud right now. But this episode is about lupus. But before we get into that,
And mental health issues.
And mental health, in both, and kind of how they correlate. But before we get into that, we are going to talk about today's wine.
Can we toast?
We can
Since it is your birthday, and you've told everyone who listens to the podcast,
which, by the way, if you
walks on the road.
If you didn't wish me a happy birthday on my birthday, you can wish me a happy birthday now. It's fine.
Happy birthday,
Thank
honey.
you.
I'm blessed that you're in my life.
Thank you.
For a long time.
I'm blessed that I'm in my life, too.
So tell everybody about the wine.
Yeah, so this is a Borarrasca Cava.
Can you say that again?
Borarrasca Cava. Borarrasca Cava. It's Spanish. I don't know why I'm giving it an Italian accent. So it's produced using the traditional cava method, and this wine represents authentic Spanish quality and spends at least 9 months in the bottle before distribution. It's very crisp, clean, and well-balanced, and features delicate aromas and unique freshness. The unmistakable taste leads from a full ripe apple, which I don't know why that sounds so funny. It's a full ripe apple.
As opposed to a half ripe apple.
Right, or like a sliced apple.
Right.
Full sliced apple.
Or an apple that's not ripe.
Anyway, going back to that. It's full ripe apple, pear, and bright citrus nose. I don't know what a citrus nose is.
I don't either, and I really don't care.
Okay. Encouraging big, round, soft flavors in the mouth, which I'm sorry, but anytime someone says that something's in the mouth, I just giggle because I'm a child. The finish is appealing and long.
It's long.
I don't understand why it's long. I'm not kidding. I read that and I was like,
it's long.
With a slight touch of ginger, and I do love ginger.
You do.
I do.
You do.
It helps with my belly.
I like ginger cookies.
Oh, cool. You just like cookies, so I mean, I like sugar. I like lemon if there's sugar. So
I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's because when I was growing up, my mother thought an ideal breakfast was instant breakfast, which was just like fake chocolate and sugar with milk.
Oh, yeah. It's called cereal.
No, that wasn't even cereal. It was you mixed it with milk and you drank it. Yeah. That was my breakfast every morning. Oh. That's what I had.
Okay. Well.
That and of course we lived on Coca-Cola. No sugar there either.
None.
Or either.
No. Neither.
Either.
But today we are talking because...
Well, you had an eventful week.
I had an eventful week.
And you called me the other night just sobbing.
I did.
And sharing how much you appreciated Selena Gomez.
I do.
And her willingness to share her struggles with lupus and mental health. And apologizing to me for things you've said and done in the past. And it felt like by watching her documentary, you felt validated.
Yeah. Well, let me first say that I have been struggling with my lupus journey since I was diagnosed when I was 26 years old. So,
it's clear you had it before, because I think back when you were going to the urologist when you were 22 years old and struggling, and some of the things,
constantly getting sick, constantly having gastrointestinal issues, constantly having lesions, things on my face. You know, it's rashes. I can't stand heat. Heat's really hard for me to be in, and it's one of those things that when I was finally diagnosed, it was kind of like, oh, cool, great, this gives me answers. And yet with the lupus, there are no real answers.
Right. I did some research because of that. But before, oh my God, she's doing her Alexis thing.
I wasn't done.
But I just wanted, I wasn't saying I was going to tell everybody about the research. I was just saying I did some research. But before you go back, Alexis, I swear, Schitt's Creek
had such an impact.
It did. It's so bizarre.
But so did Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez had a great impact on me.
So when you first told me you had lupus, I honestly wasn't sure it was real.
Well, it was interesting because they weren't sure if it was Lyme or lupus. And there was something in my blood test results that came back with this, it's like a trace. I can't explain what it is, but there's something where it's like the lupus, I don't know what it's called, but it was in my blood and in tests. And so they realized it wasn't Lyme, that it was lupus. And it explained the reasons why I was having severe fatigue. And I mean fatigue so bad that I was afraid of falling asleep driving. I couldn't get through work. And at the time I was teaching yoga full time, and I would have to go home and take naps. And I mean, 2-hour-long naps in order to teach another class. And fortunately that schedule worked out, but I had to ultimately quit being in the field of fitness because
of the heat,
because I was overdoing it.
Hot yoga. Yeah.
Well, not even just that. I was overdoing it as far as fitness. Certain things just wouldn't work for lupus. And the biggest struggle wasn't just the physical symptoms, but it was the exacerbation of it feeling so isolating and anxiety inducing. And nobody believes you because you look fine on the outside.
That's true.
And that's something that it's still, I battle with it today, as we know, with the whole, well, you look fine. It's like, thanks, I try really hard to look fine. But on the inside, there is a physical battle, not just with, the way I feel physically, but also mentally. It's been a struggle. And I've also been diagnosed with
other mental health
issues. We won't get into the specifics. Happy to talk to anybody about it on the side, because unfortunately, there's still a lot of stigma around certain diagnoses, which is why I really felt so validated watching that Selena Gomez documentary, My Mind and Me, because she is very candid about her lupus and she's very candid about her diagnosis. And I was watching this going, oh my God, people are watching this and finally realizing that like this is a thing. I've dealt with that. I've dealt with the struggles. I've dealt with being so angry because I haven't understood what's happening to me, or just because my mind was signaling things that weren't, making sense, or things that weren't correct. And then when you're sick physically, you get more anxious, and it's this vicious cycle because now you're anxious that you're sick, and when am I going to get better? And then you become depressed, and it's been hard. But I watched that documentary and I got some sense of hope out of it. Aww. Because
that's good, honey.
Here's this girl who is kicking ass on tour, who is, doing a lot of philanthropy work as well.
Well, she can afford to.
Well, she can, but
she and her BFF Taylor Swift are like,
but she's
super wealthy.
Well, yeah, she's a billionaire now, but she's worked hard for it. She's been working since she was 7 years old.
Right.
So while this isn't the Selena Gomez podcast, it's very like this episode is down to her, because I've seen her work so hard, but I've also seen, she's had to take time off. She's had to go through treatment centers. She's had to do things in order to make sure that she's healthy enough to be able to have the platform to speak out on these issues. So, but the fact that she's speaking out is huge.
It is huge. And I'm grateful, because it's always validating for me as your mom to know that you feel validated, that you feel like, oh, people are taking me seriously.
Yeah.
And what I started to say before and didn't finish saying, not because no one allowed me to say it or anything, but I didn't, when you told me it was lupus, because you've always loved wolves. And
oh, shut up. I believe, yeah, no. I remember it took me a minute to realize that. I remember when I went back to the doctor the second time, I was like, so is like lupine, does that mean like I get to turn into a wolf? And he just looked at me. He was a very like no nonsense doctor. He just looked at me like, no.
What the fuck?
He was his response was literally like, no. And I was like, well, all right. Well,
and because you had struggled with so many mental health issues, when you mentioned that to me, I was like, is it real? Is it not real? Because I wasn't sure if it was you and your brain trying to come up with a legitimate reason for some of the things you had gone through.
Oh, that's sad for me.
Well, no, but it took me a little while to realize, hey, this is real.
Yeah.
And what I had to do was look into it and research it. And when I did, I was able to go, no, this is real.
Right.
This is consistent with all of these symptoms you've been experiencing since you were a very young adult.
Right.
And what's really sad is it took between the time, because symptoms really started about the time you were 20, 21.
Yeah.
But you didn't get diagnosed till you were 26.
And that's so something that's really interesting and something I see a lot. And I have a friend that I was just talking to about this last night, is that we'll go to doctors, or we've gone to doctors and they're like, you're fine, your panels are fine, everything looks fine. And you're like, no, this is, I swear, like, I'm not making this up. This isn't in my head. These physical things are happening. And it takes finding the right doctor to listen to you and go, let's look deeper into this, because you're right, that's not normal.
Right. Well, and what I learned when I looked into lupus is it affects different people differently. Mm-hmm. For example, the Mayo Clinic, which is a very reliable source, shares how lupus occurs when the body's immune system attacks the body's tissues and organs due to an autoimmune response. And autoimmune issues run in my side of the family.
Yeah.
You know, your Gami had autoimmune issues. Her siblings have autoimmune issues. There's just a long history of that on my side of the family. So it was like a bulb went off.
Yeah.
Click. Hello. That makes a lot of sense. It can affect the joints, skin, kidneys, blood cells, the brain, heart, and or the lungs. And it isn't easy to diagnose because those symptoms often mimic symptoms of other diseases.
Yes, never Google your symptoms.
You're the worst about going to WebMD.
When I Google my symptoms, I'm like, well, I have 7 days.
She does. She'll call me and go,
I'm like, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, I will say something that, and it was really funny because I never Googled lupus before I was diagnosed with it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a thing.
I'd heard of it, but it was like that distant
I thought lupus was, and I think it stemmed from a disease where people used to grow hair in places that they wouldn't normally. Mm-hmm. Obviously it's become so different, and I am so sorry if you're hearing the dog right now, because he is trying so hard to find a place to lay down.
He's so old.
He's so old. You guys, don't worry. The podcast after the next one won't have him as much in it.
I don't know. He's awfully sweet.
He's still very sweet. He just is taking a minute to lay down. But you know what? I understand that, because it's hard with lupus
to get comfortable.
It is so hard. And I know people, I have dealt with, you know, even my roommates who are like, okay, well, why does the house have to be 68 degrees? Because if it's any higher, I don't sleep. I'm uncomfortable. I swell. I get inflamed. It's a difficult disease to deal with.
Well, and a lot of the symptoms, like you mentioned before, include fatigue. It includes fevers, joint pains, stiffness, swelling, rashes on the face. You've had those, or lesions. One of I think the most iconic people that has suffered from lupus, that a lot of people aren't even aware has suffered from lupus, is Seal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I didn't know
those scars on his face are the result of lupus.
Wait, are they really?
Yeah, Google it.
I'm going to right now, because someone once told me it was like because of like a tribe or something.
No, that's a myth.
Oh, wow.
It can affect your fingers and toes. They turn blue during stressful periods or when exposed to the cold. You experience severe dry eyes.
Oh my God, you're right.
I know I'm right. You think I would say something publicly without knowing it's the truth?
No. Well, shout out Seal, because I know that's something that another thing that's affected my mental health is feeling not pretty because of the way that my lupus has affected me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and headaches, confusion, memory loss, chest pain. So there are a lot of symptoms. And the other thing that I think is important and most people aren't aware of is that it most often affects women, is more commonly diagnosed in women. And
not white women, right? It's normally like
most common in African American, Asian American, and Hispanics, and
indigenous women.
Yeah,
because I did look that up. So
exactly. So, and usually diagnosed between the ages of 15 and 45.
Wow.
It's an inherited predisposition that can be triggered by medications, infections, even something like the common cold can trigger lupus.
Yeah.
And exposure to sunlight are also triggering.
I'm the brownest vampire I know.
Yet generally the causes, well, and the one most common cause for triggering any lupus symptom, stress.
Trust me, I know. I love when my doctors are like, well, can you just reduce your stress levels? And I'm like, well, can you just pay my student loans? And then possibly.
Maybe. I know. Listen, honey, I can totally empathize with the stress around your student loans because you watched how stressful they were for me.
Well, it's not even student loan stress. It's just, it's the world that we live in inherently is stressful, and it's finding ways to kind of combat that. But it is true. I know that the past couple weeks at my job have been extremely stressful.
Have they? It's a little bit. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, too.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, stress is anyway. But the other thing that I found in doing the research.
Yes, the way you tapped me. Like, I'm sorry. She just tapped me like, okay, shut up, my turn. I'm talking now. I'm holding the talking stick. Go ahead.
Oh, that's what we need.
A talking stick
for the podcast. I used to run a grief support agency.
Tangent.
And we used Native American talking sticks when we hosted the groups for the kids. And it's amazing how those talking sticks allow people to have the floor and the space and the grace. And
allow other people to listen.
Yeah, exactly. And
which I don't do, apparently, because I just interrupted you.
You did. And
but it's
I
true.
do it to you all the time.
I know.
So, that too is inherited. About 50 to 60% of lupus patients experience anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. And of those, 25% experience major depression and 37% have major anxiety. There are some fascinating newer medical investigations into the interplay between lupus and mental health issues, including psychosis and sleep disorders.
Hey.
You have serious sleep issues.
I do.
And have since you were a young child.
Yeah.
Grief, mood swings, personality changes, including unpredictable anger. So I can't imagine that.
No.
Yeah, no, you have not had any of that.
I'll be very honest. There were times in my life, and I thought about it last night, and I don't mean to get emotional, but there were times in my life, especially in my early 20s, where I thought I would not make it to be 34 years old.
Yeah.
Whether it be because of health or be because of mental illness, it's been hard.
It has been. And there were times I worried that you weren't going to make it, too.
Yeah, and there were things that I did. I know that I called you the other night to say sorry because I've done this to people I love, and I think I do this to people I love because thank God they still love me back. But I've said some horrible things in states that I haven't been myself. And I think it's a lot of anger around not understanding what's happening with your body, not having control over the feelings that your mind is creating as well. And so when that happens, I mean, I remember saying horrible things to you and Gami. I will be very honest. I've been institutionalized for attempting. And I think many people go through very similar things, even if they don't have an autoimmune disease. There's
you
so
had the
much...
worst of both worlds.
I did.
You have the mental health predisposition on your father's side and on your mother's side.
Right.
And then you have the autoimmune issue from your mother's side.
And then my own traumas that I've dealt with personally,
exactly,
So
which exacerbated all of it.
Right, exactly. And I will say something that still continues to help is therapy, having good doctors, and having people in your life that you're open with and honest with, because ultimately when you can be very candid, like Selena Gomez, that's when you can really get the help that you need.
That's true. You have to be honest with yourself and honest with them. And I think that's one of the things, because of the stigma, you weren't always honest with them.
No.
There came a point where you realized either I have to be fucking honest or I'm never going to get better.
Yeah.
And I have seen the progression in your ability to overcome and move beyond that place of just, we call it emotion mind, where your brain is not functioning from a place of logic. It is functioning from a place of emotion.
Right.
Your amygdala and hippocampus are firing on all synapses, and the prefrontal cortex is completely shut down.
Yeah.
And it has nothing happening, and you have, I mean, there are times where
it's what did we watch? We watched Split, which this is not. I don't have split personality disorder. But it feels like that sometimes because I've done things and I look back on it and I'm like, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
That's not me. And that's something that Selena talked about in her documentary. And her documentary is My Mind and Me, you know, because it does sometimes feel like this battle between the voice in your head and then you, like, innately. And it's just interesting. It really has. I mean, and I will say, be very careful with who you surround yourself with. And if anyone ever tells you that you don't need your meds, break up with that person.
Amen. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That, or that you don't need a therapist.
Right.
You don't need a therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a therapist. You guys, therapy is not just for the girl interrupteds. It's for everybody.
It really is.
It really is.
And there are ways, you know, throughout the research that I did early on, there are so many ways to find self-care that isn't taking a bubble bath or, you know, the things that we think are going to be self-care. You can't see me out there doing the air quotes, but I'm doing them.
Ears.
Bunny ears. It is about taking a walk in nature.
Right.
Breathing deeply.
Taking a nap.
You know, going out of town with your mom.
Right. Cooking, making a good meal for yourself, even if it takes a little bit longer, or even if you know, order sushi or something. It's self-care is different for everybody, but it's the one thing that for me, self-care is what's going to lower my stress levels right now. Even if it's just a little.
And I've observed your ability to recognize when you're going down that rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. And find a way to bring yourself back out of it.
Or acknowledge it. I will.
Well, you acknowledge it.
I'll tell people, I'll be like, listen, I'm in emotion mind, or I'll say
I'm in my head.
Or I'll say I'm in my head, or I'll say I'm not doing so well. And that's something that Selena Gomez would tell her team. She would say, you know, like, I'm not okay, or I'm not doing so well, or, you know, something I really applaud is that she went out after having not performed for a very long time on an awards show right after having a panic attack, an anxiety attack, and sang. And I remember reading people saying things like, oh, she was off pitch, she was off key. She was phenomenal for getting up there, for one, and being vulnerable. And I think she sounded beautiful. So I think it takes a lot of courage to talk about one's mental health, one's physical health, and to still go out there and do what you love.
Well, and a voice is an instrument, and when you haven't been practicing,
right,
you can't expect it to be perfect.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't get back up and do it.
Exactly.
It just means you do it and realize that, hey, I'm not perfect because I haven't been practicing.
Right. Or I mean, but that's with anything, you know? That's something that used to scare me all the time with my health was, what happens if I ever lose my voice? Because I was so attached to that identification of who I was. Mm-hmm. And that's something else that I'm learning to do as well, is not attach myself to having the identity of lupus. It's something I have. It's not who I am. And that's difficult sometimes.
Well, and it's true. It's not who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And neither is my mental stuff. It's not who I am.
Who you are.
Right.
And there are still people out there who will look at a diagnosis and they don't look at you as having that diagnosis. They look at you
as Glenn Close,
as anyone,
whatever that movie was.
Well, or you know, the bipolar thing that's out there. You know, it's like this
borderline or bipolar. Everyone thinks that it's something different than what it is.
Yeah, and the reality is, it is what's happening to you.
Right.
It's not who you are.
Exactly.
And I think, I've know people that refer to people who are diagnosed with things like BPD that say, oh, she's that. But that's not who she is.
Right. And that's something
that's what she has.
I really hate when, and it's so interesting because I hear guys do it more about women than women do it to women. And I think we're just, getting more into a girls era, which woohoo. But I'll hear a guy who's broken up with someone and, oh, she's crazy. Oh, she was bipolar. Oh, she had borderline personality disorder. Oh, she's this. And it's like, one, you're not a doctor. And two, how do you actually know? And three, did she just not like your fashion sense and did your breath smell? So, like...
Or were you
gaslighting her?
Or were you just not the right person who could handle where she was in her emotional evolution?
That too, yeah.
And so when she was in that emotional state, did you continue to trigger it? Or did you learn how to help her re-regulate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that you and I have had to do. Learn how to not trigger me.
Well, I think I've had to learn how to not try to fix it for you. Because I've always wanted to fix it for you.
And it's not something that's easily fixed.
No, and so being in that space, holding the space for you while you're in that emotional, highly emotive place.
Yeah.
Learning how not to respond unless it's, I hear you and I love you and that's it. And then to be able to turn it off because it's not going to do any good. It's just going to continue to escalate.
Right.
If I don't back away. So yeah. It's it's been a journey. I've learned to be a better human. I told you this as a result of being on the journey with you. I've learned how to be a better human, not just with you, but with others. And I wouldn't trade it.
Well, thank you. I know something that I still struggle with, not as much as I used to, but I still do, is guilt. I have this weird guilt around things that I've done and said when I've been in that headspace, or, it wasn't even a year ago that I had a horrible flare up. And I just remember getting up in the middle of the night and in my head, I was in so much pain. And I just was like, I want this to end so badly in any way, shape, or form that it can. And in that moment, that's what you're thinking because you're in a lot of pain, but it's not what you actually feel. Mm-hmm. But when you tell people who love you, when you're saying that to people in the moment who love you,
it's scary.
It's scary to them.
Yeah.
And I've held a lot of guilt because I'm like, oh God, I wouldn't actually do that to you. It's just, in that moment, you don't want to be in pain. So it's this weird dichotomy because, it's, I don't know, it's something that I will probably have to continue to work on.
Oh, I don't think any of us ever. The only time that we stop needing to work on things
is when we're dead.
Is when we die.
Yeah.
Right.
And even then, I'm going to work really hard on trying to haunt some people. So, I'm like, how do I get ghost energy? I want ghost energy. I don't want to stay stuck haunting one place. I want to be able to travel. I'm a traveling ghost.
You're going to come find me?
Why am I dying before you?
No, I said, are you going to come find me? I will be dead already.
Oh, no, we'll be hanging out.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to come find me.
Well, hopefully you'll be there when I...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got to come find me.
I don't want to... This is not a fucking scavenger hunt. I don't want to try to come find you when I'm dead. This got morbid really quickly.
Well, I think anytime you are vulnerable and start talking about things that are a little deep, it can easily go to the left or the right towards...
Kitty corner.
Yeah.
Catty corner. Kitty corner.
Kitty
catty.
Kitty kitty.
Corners.
Well, I'm always just really grateful. And you have apologized to me over the years. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for that. And, it's not easy to be in your body and in your head.
Yeah.
And
it's really not.
And so the fact that you've done all this incredible work and can still acknowledge that, I still have a long way to go and I haven't always been great, but I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And that's what you've said to me in the past.
And it's true. I am grateful. I'm very grateful to be here in this moment right now doing this podcast with you. I'd be lying if I say that I'm not nervous about November. Because who knows what's going to happen? What?
That's me being nervous.
Oh. I thought you were going to be like, shut up, don't start talking about that.
No, but I think all of us are nervous about it.
No, I'm talking about my potential surgery, not the election. I like how that wasn't about me at all. She was like, your surgery's fine, shut up.
It's after the election.
My surgery's, we don't know when it will be, but I'm speaking to the surgeon before.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So.
November the...
I don't know, but it's before the election. We're not talking politics on this podcast.
But both are... November is filled with unknowns.
I'm so nervous. Me over here, like, my health, I'm nervous. And my mom's like, the state of the world, the state of the country. So Anyway. Yeah. Coming back.
But I'll take off and go with you.
I know, and I appreciate that, and that means a lot to me. I know a lot of people don't always have that person to be there for them. So if you are out there and you're experiencing, autoimmune issues, if you are experiencing mental health, I hate calling them issues. Needs, because they're not, they might be issues to you personally, but they're not issues. They're things that are happening that we have no control over, that we can learn to control in a way if we have the right help. And just know, something I love to tell people is you are not alone. Even though it might feel like you are, you're not. And if you ever need someone to reach out to, you can always reach out to us. We will put a couple of therapy links, like for BetterHelp.
There are a couple of them that are out there, some newer ones.
Yeah, so we'll put some links at the bottom of the show notes.
And you can always reach out to 211 in your area if you can't afford some of the resources that are more expensive. 211 has resources through local nonprofits that often work on a sliding scale.
I didn't know that.
Or at no cost.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And to all my other lupus warriors out there, my little loopy warriors, keep fighting the good fight. I believe one day we will figure out something that'll help us all. And to all my mental health warriors out there, we're all in this together.
That's right.
Sorry, a High School Musical song.
A thong? You have a thong in your head?
Sorry, I'm just in my head.
Don't
like,
do it.
We're all in this together. We're all in this together. So, and if you ever want to talk about your own journeys with your own autoimmune issues, or...
I think you already said that.
I did. I'm just...
I think you're being a little redundant now, honey.
I was redundant in the last podcast,
Just
too.
tell them where to go.
Please reach out to me on my Instagram, which is @LarkinLuna, or you can email us at larkandmomster@gmail.com. LARKANDMOMSTER@gmail.com. And thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for letting me and my mom be candid and vulnerable. And thank you, Selena Gomez, for all you do for the mental health community and for us loopies out there.
For being vulnerable.
Lupus, yeah.
Publicly vulnerable. It's not easy to do that. It's much easier to hide behind a wall.
And honestly, it's because of Selena Gomez that people even believe me when I say I have lupus. Mm-hmm. They'll go, oh, Selena Gomez has lupus. And it's like, well, thank God some celebrity does, because y'all wouldn't
know. Now you
me.
know, so does
Seal. Yeah.
Right. There are probably more people out there than we realize. So
yeah.
Just remember to be kind.
Everyone's fighting their own internal battle, right? Yeah. So that is something, it costs nothing to be kind.
That's true. So it was great speaking with you guys today. And we look forward to next week.
Over and out.